I'm going to turn my camera off. Pay attention to the presentation. Today's presentation, I'm past Master Michael Epps from Shine a Light for one. The title of today's lecture is Beyond the Surface, exploring the dimensions of Shibboleth. Introduction. Imagine a world so simple yet so saturated with significance, a word that has sparked curiosity, ignited conflict, and whispered secrets across centuries. This term is woven into the fabric of our collective narrative, beckoning us to dig deeper, to explore beyond the surface. Welcome to the mystifying realm of Shibboleth, a word that holds the power to both unite and divide, to reveal and conceal. So, as we embark on this journey, let us unravel the tangled threads of history, mythology, and symbolism. And we're going to discover some hidden truths beneath the surface of Shibboleth. So, the biblical interpretation. The biblical account of Shibboleth is found in Judges 12:4-6. And in this context, Shibboleth refers to ear of grain or stream. However, during a conflict between the men of Gilead and the Ephraimites, the Gileadites used the word Shibboleth as a password to identify friend or foe. To understand the significance of Shibboleth in this context, we're going to examine the historical background. So, after defeating the Ammonites, Jephthah and his men, the Gileadites, they clashed with the Ephraimites. So, this is the biblical narrative. Shibboleth serves as a test of identity, loyalty, and belonging. So, the historical background, the men of Gilead and the Ephraimites were two tribes of Israel. They had a long-standing rival. That conflict between them, it's sparked by the Ephraimites' perception that they've been slighted by the men of Gilead during the previous battle with the Ammonites. So the men of Gilead, anticipating an attack by the Ephraimites, devised a plan to identify and to eliminate the enemy. So the historical battle of the Ephraimites. So during this battle, the men of Gilead used the word Shibboleth as a password to identify Ephraimites who were attempting to flee across the river Jordan. So the Gilead would ask each person trying to to cross the river to say ye Shibboleth. And if the person pronounced the word correctly, they were allowed to pass. However, if pronounced it incorrectly, they were killed as an Ephraimite. So 40 and 2,000 were perished during this conflict. And at the different, they used the phrase at the different passes on the banks of River Jordan, Masonically speaking. Biblically, it says at the passages of Jordan. So Shibboleth as a password, the use of Shibboleth as a password, it served several purposes. You had identification. So this was a unique word that the men of Gilead, they knew would be difficult for the Ephraimites to pronounce correctly. So this is security. So the men of Gilead, they ensured that only those who were genuinely on their side could pass through the lines. And then a psychological warfare. So the use of that word, it served as a you could say an intimidation and to demoralize the Ephraimites because they was aware of their inability to be able to pronounce the word. So we have the middle chamber. And in the fellowcraft degree, the candidate ascended a flight of steps consisting of 357 of King Solomon's temple. There, the fellowcraft received further instructions. So these steps associated with the progression of knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. So this middle chamber in itself is not just a physical barrier, but it's a symbolic one, and it requires the candidate to demonstrate the understanding of the spiritual principles, morals, and values that underlie us in our Masonic journey of continued growth. So Shibboleth in the middle chamber. So in the context of the middle chamber, Shibboleth can be seen as a password or a key that grants access to deeper levels of self-awareness and spiritual understanding. So you have the symbolic word, and it represents the candidate's commitment to continue growth and self-reflection. There's a spiritual significance because it grants you that access to those deeper levels of self-awareness and spiritual understanding. And within the Masonic tradition, if you're looking at the ritual, Shibboleth was used as a password to gain the ability to learn the step of a fellow craft and how the apron is worn for that same degree. That they was unable to obtain that until they used the password to access. So the Masonic explanation, Shibboleth is connected with the River Jordan, an ear of corn hanging near a waterford, and a concept of harvest and reward. It represents the fruits of labor, the moral and intellectual wages of fellowcraft earned at the top of the winding. So it signals a man who has labored and is now prepared to receive further life. So the additional insights, we have this idea of identity and belonging coming from Shibboleth. It can represent this shared identity. This is a cultural heritage, it's linguistic tradition, and that can define a community, that can define a group, that we have words and phrases that we use within our order that coalesces around the order. So you have this symbolic significance that the Mason's progression to the middle chamber and the lessons of labor, wages, and reward that accompanied that fellowcraft in his journey on the ascent. And so we have this esoteric connection that stands out, that Shibboleth as a sacred sound has influence on being resonating and harmonizing energetic fields. You can even see this as the alignment of the chakras or the sephira in the Kabbalistic tradition. And so we also have power dynamics. The term can be used to examine power relationships between groups when we're talking about the inclusion or the exclusion of certain language or words or phrases. So passing through the veil, and know me, I mean, we can have a conversation about the subject, um, and that's perfectly fine, but you also can then pass the veil. Passing the veil gives you a different insight or farther looking at the concept of Shibboleth, and that takes us to the Hebrew letters of Shibboleth. We have Shin, uh, Yod, Bet, Lamed, and Tav. So Shin, it represents the divine, spiritual, and mystical aspects. Yod symbolizes the divine spark, creativity, new beginnings. Bet, associated with the concept of duality, balance, and the physical world. Lamed, it represents the heart, emotions, and connection between the physical and the spiritual realm. And Tav, that symbolizes completion, perfection, and the integration of opposites. We're still dealing with this duality, even in the fellowcraft degree. So there's a spiritual explanation. So Shibboleth is often associated with the concept of a password or a test of worthiness. This interpretation is rooted in the idea that certain knowledge or recognition is reserved for those who have attained a particular level of spiritual awareness or initiation. Why I think this is pretty cool is because you, as an apprentice, you studied the ritual, you've showed proficiency, and then you went into the fellowcraft degree. And entering the fellowcraft degree, you to be able to show proficiency to move toward master mason, that you have to present yourself to a particular level of understanding of the liberal arts and sciences. And Shibboleth is that password that will take you to um, into the middle chamber as you make your way up. So this is giving you the access before you get to the 3, 5, and 7. So further explanation, in mysticism, certain words serve as gateways to altered consciousness. The correct utterance of such words can open the inner temple. It can call forth divine archetypes, and it can align the speaker. So when we talk about the correct pronunciation of Shibboleth, it's believed that you can invoke higher states of awareness. This allows the speaker to access deeper levels of consciousness and give you the ability to connect with the divine. So some noted misconceptions about Shibboleth: we have this literal interpretation. So you have some that can view it solely as a historical or a literal term, rather than also looking at the symbolic or the esoteric concept. Like we we are speculative Masons that study an operative sport, So we have these two planes of speculative and operative. So all the things that we deal with in the operative story, we should be able to find parallels and the speculative and how it would apply. So you have the limited context by focusing solely on the biblical account of Shibboleth without exploring any of the broader esoteric or even the spiritual significances of it. And then you got the superficial understanding. So when you reduce Shibboleth to a simple password or test, rather than recognizing its deeper connections to vibration, resonance, and multidimensional awareness. So Shibboleth is rich and complex, is a rich, complex term, and it encompasses historical, spiritual, esoteric, and mystical school tradition. So now we could dig deeper. Um, you could study the subject, you can pass the veil, and you can dig deeper to undercover. You could uncover layers of hidden meanings that you didn't know that existed. You could see parallels and correlations if you're searching off this same subject. And so it takes us to linguistic alchemy. So shibboleth can be seen as a form of linguistic alchemy where correct pronunciation transforms the speaker's energy and consciousness. Some of the key aspects is language has the power to shape reality and transcend physical limitations. If you look at rhetoric and you study rhetoric, um, past the veil and digging deeper, that'll take you to a space where you can speak words into existence. Um, that says in the Bible that we're made in God's image. Certain words and sounds can be used for transformation and spiritual growth. So esoteric aspects of shibboleth. So in the outer world, shibboleth was a linguistic test, a word used to distinguish friend from foe. Within the esoteric tradition, it becomes more than a password. It's a vibrational key, a resonant frequency, and a sacred utterance where you can speak things into existence. Its correct pronunciation is believed to carry specific vibrational frequencies. So in ritual esoteric traditions, long held that certain sound open gateways. So if you have these certain sounds that's opening gateways, shibboleth would be considered one of them based on how it was used in antiquity. So we have vibrational encryption. The utterance of shibboleth then is not just an audible password, but a carrier of symbolic information in tone, rhythm, and structure. It encodes layers of meaning accessible to only those who approach it with reverence and understanding. That you can look at a subject, you can look at a topic, but if you don't understand the depths of it, you will only see it as such. That masonry in itself is layered. Like on the surface, you'll have the ritual, you'll have um, the apron, you have the lectures. Under that you'll have the allegories, you have the mysteries, and then under that you'll have divinity and being able to find parallels to the cosmos. So multidimensional resonance, shibboleth could be associated with multidimensional resonance, where the correct punctuation of the word allows the speaker to tap into and resonate with parallel dimensions or realities. So some key aspects are sound and vibration can access and communicate with other dimensions. Certain words and sounds hold the key to unlocking hidden realms. Correct pronunciation again allows resonance with parallel dimensions and realities. So this concept of resonating with parallel dimensions and realities, it could be related to an idea of multidimensional consciousness, that we're all one and the same, as above, so below, as within, as without. So in the Kabbalah, in the Kabbalistic teachings, Shibboleth is linked to the concept of the language of the birds, a mystical language believed to hold the secret of creation. This idea of symbolic expression, the language of the birds, is believed to convey complex ideas and spiritual truths through symbolic language, metaphors, and allegories, similar to what Masonry does, or any of the mystery schools when you're talking about complex concepts that you'll use Symbolic language, you use metaphors, you use allegories. So hidden meaning, this language is thought to hold hidden meanings and codes that require interpretation and understanding to unlock its secrets. Um, some may be aware of the Icky and its Masonic ritual written in secret form. And the only way that you was able to learn it is by being around learned brothers who could speak its language and interpret it for you. He had spiritual insight. So the language of the birds is associated with spiritual insight, intuition, and deeper understanding of mysteries of creation. We have the Hermetic school of thought. The Hermetics teachings associate Shibboleth with the concept of the word, a divine vibration that underlines all of creation. So this divine vibration is the word. It's associated with divine vibration. Is associated with sound, and that underlies all creation. That you could take um, um, a metal, like you move it around and it makes sound, and you can hold it over water and you'll see it start moving the water, that vibration. The creative power, the word is seen as a creative power that brings forth manifestation and sustains the universe. And then the universal principle, that the concept of the word represents universal principles that govern the workings of the cosmos. So Hermetic school of thought elevated the idea of Shibboleth and took it to the divinity. Um, and Gnostic school of thought, they view Shibboleth as a symbol of hidden knowledge or gnosis, which is reserved for those who have attained spiritual enlightenment. So you have hidden knowledge is referring to spiritual insight. It's believed that to be reserved for those who have attained spiritual enlightenment. Spiritual enlightenment is the attainment of gnosis, and that's self-realization and deeper understanding of the nature of reality in itself. And then this initiation and understanding. So the concept of Shibboleth as a symbol of gnosis implies that the understanding of words, meaning, or significance is a key aspect of spiritual initiation and enlightenment. Was interested to know about these um, other mystery schools when they looking at Shibboleth or just any facet of masonry that you can pull it off and then compare it to what other schools of thought are using that symbol. Now, in this particular conversation, Shibboleth, that the parallels is interesting on the diverse ways that they look at something. So Shibboleth, a term of originating from ancient Hebrew, has traversed the realms of language, culture, and symbolism, bearing multiple layers of meaning. As we ventured beyond its surface, we uncovered a rich tapestry of interpretations from the biblical origins to its modern applications. As we delved into the dimensions of Shibboleth, we found that its significance extends far beyond the literal meaning. It has become a metaphor for human experience, reflecting our struggles with identity, community, and the pursuit of knowledge. And I do greatly appreciate the time um, taken to hear this presentation. Here are the references that were associated to this presentation. And at this time, if there are any questions, thoughts, comments, open to such. Thank you. Brother Leonard.
First of all, great presentation, Brother Epps, as always. Could you go back to the slide where you broke down the Hebrew letters, Shibboleth? That kind of put some pieces together for me that I would like to just quickly mention as I go into a question. So uh, I have very limited studies on Hebrew, but from what I've learned from another brother who is a Jewish Mason, um, if you look at the way they pronounce the word shibboleth, the first letter shin can be pronounced two ways. You have shin and you have sin. In ancient Hebrew, or the original Hebrew, they didn't have accent marks. You understood by the context. So it's just like we have words where we can infer the meaning by context clues. Due to the language and the tonality of what they were speaking, you knew whether it was going to be she or she. And so for me, that kind of tells me the purpose, one of the purposes of learning these words and understanding these studies is that Freemasonry allows us to speak the same language, no matter you come from a Christian background, a Catholic background, Islam, Buddhism. Once you enter into a lodge, you become a Master Mason. We can all meet on the level and converse the same way. Why? Because we all understand, or at least we should understand, the same principles. This also can elaborate on the obligation where it says, until strict trial, due examination, or lawful information, I should have found him or them as lawfully entitled to the same as I am myself. So with the new Master Mason, there are certain conversations we can have. Why? Because we speak the same languages, but because I'm maybe a little bit more studied, or because I may be a past master or senior warden or wherever my travels may have taken me, I might be able to speak a little bit deeper than a new Master Mason. So this is a way for us to be able to engage on the level with brothers, no matter whether they're new Master Masons or they're 20 years in. If you look at the next letter, the Yod, understanding the Yod, this is significant as it represents the hand of deity. Um, we take each other by the right hand, which we learned is about fidelity. Yet, if you look at how we grip and how we move with the right hand, this almost signifies a smaller human level of the hand of creation. So there's another slide Brother Mike hit where it says vibrational, how it can represent the word of God, or how the words of creation with the birds and the understanding the sons of creation. Well, as God spoke it, so it became. As we speak it, so it shall be. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So maybe this is something that can tell us that as we grow deeper into understanding the self, understanding the passwords, and the significance of these lessons, that we can start to bring about our desires into reality through our work, through our effort, through putting our mind, hearts, consciousness together to move forward toward a dedicated path. And also looking at the depth of it being the word before you can enter the middle chamber and the several liberal arts and sciences. It also says, hey, this is the gateway to true study and understanding. And I think one of the most important reasons for, continued study is, how can we build a house if the only bricks we recognize are Legos? We have to continue to study so I can learn not just Legos, but I can learn brick, and I can learn concrete, and I can learn how to build a structure. And if I only build with Legos, of course my house isn't going to go anywhere. I'm still building with kiddie tools. Also, if you look at paintings and artistry, you can't paint the Sistine Temple like Michelangelo if the only Michelangelo you know is a Ninja Turtle. So we should be able to continuously study to advance ourselves, to advance how we can move, cultivate, and navigate through life. Now, Brother Mike, my question for you is, what inspired you to focus on Shibboleth?
So after that breath conversation and the Scottish Rite, that presentation, it really had me looking at everything. I looked at Shibboleth, I looked at Joshin. Well, I'm working on Joshin. I looked at Tubal Cain, so I wanted to look more as to what. Okay, we said this is the surface. Now, what's deeper? Like, what are the other secrets? The mystery schools, what are they saying about it? So it's just been my interest to come back and look at the entire Blue Lodge and literally take a chunk out of it and then break it down to see what's in it. What does it mean? All right, as Gore said, does it have another illusion? And I just been taking chunks out of it since that breath presentation for the Eagles Club. I've taken an entirely different lens on masonry. Brother Gore.
Um, Thank you. I was actually wanting to just comment on what Leonard was just talking about earlier about the Hebrew letter Shin, being that that's the letter that changes between. So, Sefer Yetzirah says there's 3 mothers, 7 doubles, and 12 singles in the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, right? So there are 7 doubles, 7 letters that have double meanings or double sounds, right? Like Shin being one of them, right? So Shin and sin is kind of interesting because obviously we have the word sin that we know, meaning some fault, something you're doing wrong that's disconnecting you from God, let's say, right? So sins are you listening to your lower self over your higher self, right? Whatever your explanation of the word sin is, right? But shin is interesting because shin has a double meaning of fire, and that fire has an even deeper meaning of the spirit, meaning the activating force that's heating your body. Your body is heated by spirit, and as the spirit leaves, your body gets cold. So you have one meaning sin, meaning the thing that's bringing you more into the physicality and away from the spiritual, and the other meaning is the spiritual. And through the ritual, you're taught that one people are able to say shibboleth with the shin sound, right, and the other people say si. So what that's kind of showing you there is one person is the differencing of the word is one leading you towards the physical and one leading you towards the spiritual.
Hmm.
And that defining the differences of the word shibboleth over sibboleth. Yeah. Besides that, great lecture. Keep going down that rabbit hole. Keep spitting that knowledge. That was just something I was thinking of as I heard Brother Leonard saying it. The reason why we're saying shibboleth over sibboleth is it should be to tie us to shin, fire, spirit, over sin.
Hmm.
If I could
Okay.
quickly interject, Brother Gore, you said it's to signify one is pulling you toward this physical and one is pulling you toward the spiritual, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, the first degree is about physical discipline. You have the four cardinal virtues: temperance, fortitude, prudence, and justice. You have the three tenets, or your perfect points of entrance, which is, helping you to subdue your passions and improve yourself in masonry, which is a very physical lesson on self-discipline, controlling your urges, controlling the physical manifestations of man, and trying to lean toward that higher self or your conscience, the part of you that tells you I should aim to be the upright man and mason that I was charged to be in the northeast corner. Then you get shibboleth in the second degree, which is, in my understanding, heavily mental as it goes into the seven liberal arts and sciences and the studies, especially with the five orders of architecture and how they relate to the senses, understanding the self mentally and how we operate, and then expanding our studies as we move to the third degree, which is heavily spiritual, as we know how the uh, lore of the third degree goes and what takes place in the dramatization. That would be, in my mind, spiritual, pulling you from spiritual to physical through the middle chamber and the utterance of shibboleth, if I'm able to make that assumption or that correlation.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that. I also think that it's kind of funny that they're saying that these people don't know how to say this word correctly, like in Hebrew, and then the second word we get it is Joshin, when we know there's no J in Hebrew. So the word couldn't have been Joshin, which is very funny because we were all saying, well, they say Sibboleth and we say Shibboleth, which is the correct way, and then we say Joshin right after, which is the wrong way of saying it. So I think there are no mistakes in masonry, and I think if they say something to trip you up like that, it's a call to pay a little bit more attention here and try to understand it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can agree with that. I mean, it's a beautiful system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated through symbols. And masonry doesn't tell you what those symbols mean. They give you an explanation, and then you have an opportunity to dig deeper, and then you continue the Masonic story. That would definitely help facilitate your understanding of these symbols, and then you can step outside of masonry. Like it doesn't make you not Masonic or less Masonic if you decide to pivot and look at the other symbols and say, well, while this symbol is used in masonry, like it's not ours. Other orders have used it. What do they use it for, and how did they interpret it? And you'll see some similarities, and then you'll see differences. So, like I said, this one, uh, it just sparked me because there was a book, Shibboleth, and I was reading through it, and I was like, this is this is a little bit more to it, that the other people really took it um, as like they have it divinity, they had it more than just a password. Then there's a historical or literal sense, I guess, associated to the Bible, but it's like going up a layer of steps. Um, well, yes, sir. It is recorded though, Brother Williams. Um, um, yes, sir. You did miss it. I apologize. Um, but it's ascension, like it's spiral. As you go through masonry, that you continually sin, and then you look at it different. I was telling uh an apprentice today. Well, he's a fellow craft now. I was told him, when he was an apprentice, I was like, You've been given some new tools as a fellow craft, um, but the usage of those tools are now different. That the tools that you was receiving in the first degree was dealing with your body and getting your body prepared, because you can't get your mind right if the body isn't. And now you're presented with some of these same tools at the fellowcraft degree, whereby you would then use those tools to work on your mind. That same tools, different reason. You don't forget the tools from the first degree. You incorporate the usage of the tools in the second. So that tells me it's a progressive science. And just because we get to the third degree, the story progresses past that. Any other thoughts or questions?
Just a
Insight?
quick one. How it's an ear of corn, yet maize or corn, as we call it, is Mexican in origin. I think it's Middle American, yet it was used biblically. Very interesting. If I were to deep dive into the history of a thing.
Very, very interesting, and I guess more pointed. It said um, the interpretation biblically is grain. Um, so was grain only corn? But just a speculative conversation, a speculative thought, anyway. Um, but yeah, no, like what the premise of this is to be able to provide presentations that's beyond the ritual, um, and it's a platform that's created for other brothers, like in the jurisdiction, out the jurisdiction, interested in being able to present their ideas. Like, this is a platform to do so. And again, hey, I'm interested in being able to do presentations at my lodge. Um, I don't mind assisting with that, because if we can multiply and share knowledge within our jurisdiction of Florida, uh, without the jurisdiction, it still benefits Masonry, in my opinion. That's just my thought. Um, but if you have a want uh, to be able to present on this platform, first and third Tuesdays at 7, you can shoot a message to me. You can shoot a message to Chris Leonard, and we can put you on the calendar and present. I have a bunch of them, so I don't mind presenting. But I know that we do have some astute and sharp brothers in Masonry that wouldn't mind sharing what they have. Um, but any other thoughts and opinions? I do see Brother Damon Jack, and I'd be remiss not to ask and call on him for any comments or remarks.
Man, you just can't let me be a student for the day.
No, sir. I love you too much.
That's not love. If that's love, I don't want it. Don't love me. Matter of fact, hate me. Um, yeah, outstanding presentation. I think, as you know, uh, many of us have a tendency not to go below the surface level of what we know, and it's okay, because it's not meant for everybody to go as deep as you go. You know, I love the way you talked about vibration. You took it to the principle of vibration, and how vibration is everything. Um, uh, the one thing um, that I enjoy whenever I talk about this word is the fact that um, we know that wording is everything, and nothing in our rituals are worded by accident, right? So when we talk about this word, it states that the Ephraimites had what was known as a trifling defect, right? Um, that trifling defect of not being able to pronounce the word a certain way. So when you think about what a trifling defect is a small flaw. And think about how that small of a flaw um, cost 42,000 men their lives, right? And so it also goes into being aware and paying attention and paying attention to people, using that precious jewel in the as the attentive ear, right? Um, Using the noblest of senses, which is your sight, and being aware and being mindful of small flaws, because the smallest of flaws can determine who's for you and who's against you. You know, um, and it can be the smallest flaw in speech. It can be the smallest flaw in action, because we have to remember masonry is all about action, right? Improving yourself. When we look at when we look at what we're supposed to do, everything is verb related. Verb is an action. So when you think about that, you have to pay attention to people's behaviors, and people's behaviors are nothing but patterns. And the smallest change in patterns can determine whether a person is a friend or a foe. So um, that's the biggest thing that I've always taken away from uh, from this word. You know what I'm saying? The fact that the smallest flaw, the slip of the tongue, can cost you your life. So be mindful of those you are around, um, those who you surround yourself with, those who you place in your circle, um, because the smallest flaw can change the trajectory of that friendship, and really can change the trajectory of your life. But outstanding presentation, sir.
Appreciate it, my brother. Well said. Really well said. Um, any other thoughts or
Yeah,
opinions?
I have thought.
Yes, I wish.
You know, I was just talking to a gentleman next door, and the way he used the A sound, I could tell he was from New England. And I think that linguistically speaking, you can tell by the vowel sounds of different languages where a person is coming from or what their primary language is. So I can understand that Ephraimites would have a different vowel usage even if they were speaking the same basic language. I remember this one kid that was on TikTok, little Mexican kid, and he was calling the police, and he was trying to convince them that he was white to get a response. And they said, "Are you white?" He said, "Yeah, I'm real white." So they began to give him words to say. And when they asked him to say ask, the joke was that black people say ask, you see. So that was a way of delineating whether this kid was really white. So I'm just saying, just to make light, but also in a serious way. Accents can really reveal where you are, where you came from, and thereby determine what your cultural beliefs background are. That's all I want to share.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that, Wish. No, I definitely agree with that. Um, I tell you what, we'll go ahead and get out, but I I was on TikTok and I heard I heard a joke, and the guy said that, and I hope I don't tear it up, but I just wanted to share because I got a funny kick out of it. That this guy, he was upset with Masons because everywhere he went he saw Masons, um, and he, I don't know if he got into an accident or something, but however it was, as far as the police officer that pulled up was a Mason, and the guy had to go to jail, so the judge was a Mason, and he was just livid that the police officer, the judge, the attorney, that as far as they was all Masons, and the guy was getting ready to take him out because they was arresting him, and the man told him that he gave a spiel of him not liking Masons. The man told him, "Well, I heard that. Let me get you to step off with your left foot." Um,
Uh,
but
uh, uh,
but, but I thank y'all for coming out, and I hope that there was a benefit in the lecture again. We out first and third Tuesdays of the month. Um, I hope and pray for any traveling grace for anybody that's on the road traveling, and we'll be back on the third week, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll put the link out. Y'all brothers be blessed.